Hi, my name is Pamela Fuselli, and I'm the host of Popping the Bubble Wrap. Are you the person in your family who worries about the safety of others, about buying safety products and using them? Are you yelling, "Yes, that's me"? Then this is the podcast for you. Raising a child or children can be a hair-raising undertaking, and keeping them safe is your priority. Parachute's Popping the Bubble Wrap podcast explores what you really need to think about and provides easy tips on prevention strategies. No bubble wrap here, though. Ever wonder what the warranty card is for, if you should fill it out and send it back? Would you be surprised to learn that not every product you buy has already been tested for safety? And what are those age recommendations on toys actually for? Today, we're diving into the sometimes confusing world of consumer product safety, standards and recalls, like where to find information on how to report an issue as they relate to child products. Joining us today for the conversation are parents Matt Amar and Jen Ferrant, as well as our expert Kavinda Senanayaka, Inspector Consumer Product Safety Program, Health Canada. Okay, first off, let's be honest. Have you filled out that warranty card? Jen and Matt, have you even ever looked at it? Jen, maybe I'll start with you.
I always fill out the warranty card because I'm always afraid if it comes to I don't even think about recalls necessarily. I always think about whether, if something was to break down before the warranty was up. So it's one of those things I kind of do. But I know that that's not the norm.
Matt, how about you?
I think I've maybe done it once. I'm thinking about probably the stove. Like we recently bought like a new stove microwave, and that one I was like, okay, I'm doing it for this one. But I would say every other time I just kind of I think about it sometimes, but I usually never do it. No.
No, you're not alone. I'm pretty sure. So when you look for products, when you're buying products and toys, cribs, anything like that, car seats even, where do you buy them? Do you buy them in the stores primarily? Do you shop a lot online? Jen?
I have made it my life's mission to spend as little as humanly possible on my young child. I have an almost 4-year-old, and it's not that I don't love her. It's just that they go through things so quickly, and you spend money on a cute outfit or a toy or something, and it fits them for 2 weeks, or they play with it for a day, and then it's kind of done. And so I have done a lot of shopping on Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji. I run my local Buy Nothing group, which is one place where neighbors kind of post things that they're looking to get rid of, and you can ask for it. So a lot of what we have, I would say 90% of the things that we have in our house for our daughter were previously owned by someone else.
So that's things like toys, obviously. You mentioned
Toys,
clothes, cribs.
furniture,
Yeah.
Things like cups and plates we've got from neighbors or off the Buy Nothing group. Basically, almost anything that isn't I would say I'll use the word not even hygienic necessarily, because I even had secondhand cloth diapers. But really the new stuff we get are things that people gift her for Christmas or for birthdays and that kind of a thing. But anything that we purchase generally outside of a special thing here and there is something that's been previously owned.
Well, and you make a good point. They grow out of it so quickly that there's still a lot of life left in those products that other people could use.
And I mean, you look at the environmental impact of the consumerism of buying new things all the time, just the general cost of living these days compared to, and with the cost of raising a young kid, and then they get something new and it doesn't work for them, or they don't like it, or they turn around and it's not the hot toy anymore. And I just wonder, is it worth it?
Matt, how about you? Store? Do you buy a lot of store things? Do you get hand-me-downs or borrow things from other friends that have had children maybe a little bit older than yours?
Well, first, I'm going to say I'm in awe of Jen. The toys are the bane of my existence, as I think any new parent, and it's just like, it's just endless, right? Like there's so many things that you have to buy, especially when they're young. And we we did I think a little bit of everything. My
Mm-hmm.
wife did most of the purchasing, like that was totally her bag. I would say second we went more secondhand for some of the bigger items, the
Mm-hmm.
like structural pieces, like his dresser, wardrobe, and crib. And then my wife's an interior designer, so she would basically like kind of remodel them a bit, paint them. She'd even build some additions on them 'cause she's really handy with the wood making and all that stuff. So those pieces I think we probably got off Kijiji. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely stuff from the store for sure. A lot of stuff online. I would say the majority of his things in the early days were bought online. Things, things locally, things from China, like just wherever, right? So I would say we didn't do too. We probably could have done more secondhand stuff in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But then now it's a lot of stuff is being brought to us through, like Jen said, like with parties and birthdays and Christmas, and a lot of the new
Right.
toys now are things, yeah. Because he's also getting older too. My son's 4, so he's not necessarily playing with the types of things that he was when he was,
Yeah.
like a baby.
Is safety top of mind? I would imagine it is, but what are the things that you check when you do buy the products secondhand, Matt? Like, what are you looking for? Obviously, that they work, but are there other things that you look
Mm,
for? And do you ever check for recalls, things like that?
I would say I'm not proactively checking for recalls,
Mm-hmm.
unless there's like some kind of I probably would check for a recall if something happened. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like if there's some kind of malfunction with the toy or something, like, is this a problem? Like other people need to know about this. The recall would be me more going that route. But when we're bringing things in secondhand, I'm definitely considering safety. I mean, among all the other things, right? The general aesthetic of it, just how functional it is. I'm a very
Mm-hmm.
functional kind of person. My wife's very design. Like
Mm-hmm.
she's, we kind of have these fun fights over that. Eh? Like I'm like, well, does it work? Does it hold up? What if he shakes it? Here, let me shake it. Like I'm the guy doing that. So I'm definitely looking at just the safety, and like the crib's a good example because we have a boy. He's been 99th percentile for height and weight, pretty much like all the way through. And we're like, okay, like he's gonna climb out of this crib. Like, is this crib, or like even he would wrench on the bars. I remember like
Mm.
he would pull the bars and he'd shake it like I don't know if any of your listeners used to watch wrestling, but the Ultimate Warrior when he used to shake the ropes, that was him with the bars and the cribs. And I was like, is this thing gonna hold up? Is he gonna tear the house down? And so like I would have those kind of concerns, right? Where it's like, oh, maybe we need to like reinforce this, or but
Mm-hmm.
like luckily my wife built it pretty structurally sound, and then the molding she put on it, which I was like, oh, I don't know, what if he gets his fingers in there? That actually prevented him from getting out because he was able to climb pretty well, right? So that was another concern of mine, right? Is he going to be safe in this crib, and especially as he
Mm-hmm.
gets more adventuresome and physically capable? But yeah.
Yeah. And Jen, I mean, when you're looking at, buying secondhand or through, your group, you're not going to have all that information on the product. So, you must do some Google searching. I love that Google search on using an image. That's even better than trying to type in a description of what the item is.
Yeah, it's tough when you're buying stuff online because and I sell stuff online, so I know the difficulty sometimes of locking down a sale. And, it's tough because if it's something you're honestly interested in, sometimes asking those kind of more specific questions like, oh, can you give me the make and model? Or do you know what year this was manufactured? Or, any of those kind of clarifying questions, which could really help narrow down a product recall. Sometimes that's the difference between you getting the product or not. Because if you're too much work
Hmm.
as a buyer, the seller's going to move on to the next person, even if they're offering $5 less. Because, so personally, like I haven't and maybe I'm speaking out of just, I don't think it's ignorance necessarily, but because I've never had anything bad happen yet,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been as clairvoyant. I guess I haven't really been looking for it the way that I probably should have been. But I mean, that's not to say, as an example, in the Buy Nothing group, how sometimes I'll bring something home and it'll just not be right. You'll pick something up,
Mm-hmm.
and people are generally pretty transparent about the quality of items. They'll let this toy is missing a battery cover or it's whatever. And sometimes you'll pick something up and go, yeah, this isn't the risk I'm willing to take. And then you can either choose to regift it or, just get rid of it because you think it's kind of a larger safety issue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Kavinda, parents are often looking to save money and reuse products. Having a child is expensive, as Jen and Matt have talked about. And so borrowing from family, from friends, looking in thrift stores or online. What are some of the considerations that parents might not think about when they're doing that, when they're borrowing or purchasing secondhand items, or even, online, that may come from outside of the Canadian borders? Because there are some products that are for sale that you can buy but are not legal to sell in Canada. I recently was on Facebook Marketplace. Somebody was selling baby walker with wheels, and that's illegal to sell in Canada, whether that's not secondhand or secondhand. So what are some of the things that you want to share with parents?
I mean, there's a lot of things you have to consider when you're borrowing or purchasing products secondhand in Canada. I think the first and foremost, you have to be vigilant as a shopper. As a parent, you always have to be making sure that you're doing that extra check, making sure things are still good quality. I love what Jen was saying about, checking that button battery covers are still there. That's something. New products, new toys need to have proper compartments with a screw so that children can't kind of break open the compartment and get access to the battery, which is obviously a big hazard. So going secondhand, getting things that are borrowed, you just have to take that extra step to make sure it's not been worn down. Parts are missing, exposed wiring, for example. So that's something that you as the purchaser kind of have to take on that responsibility. Now, traditional secondhand stores do actually follow the same rules as a retailer. So a traditional secondhand store would have to make sure that all the products that they're selling should be compliant to the regulations, that there are no prohibited products like you're talking about, Pam. But there are individual sellers, and that's one thing people have to keep in mind, is that individual sellers or products that you've purchased from outside of Canada don't always are sort of outside the jurisdiction of what Health Canada can deal with. So in that case, again, you have to be vigilant as the consumer. We also recommend that there are a lot of resources through the Government of Canada's website, through canada.ca, where you can find information about various types of products that you can buy secondhand. I'll also plug that there is a recalls and safety alerts database, and that's where you, as a parent or as a consumer generally, can get updates on recalls, safety alerts, and advisories that are being posted by Health Canada, and you can subscribe to it. So on a daily basis, or when every new alert gets posted, you get an email telling you about what's going on. And that's important because especially older products, not all, I mean, it can be across the board, but products that are a bit older sometimes may have been part of a recall, but it doesn't get carried in the news cycle anymore. So you have to be a bit more diligent in terms of searching that up. But also, again, you never know when a product has an issue, and it'll tell you what to do. And the recall or safety alert would tell you what to do in the event you had the product.
And that's where that warranty card comes into play, right? If you've actually sent back the warranty card, the manufacturer will notify you. That's a mechanism that they can get in touch with people who have bought their product, right?
Well, yeah, and I think that also touches on something very important that we kind of always stress with products, is that the manufacturer is, in the end, the most responsible for the product and the expert of their product. So, when in doubt, when you have questions, when you're unsure about if there's additional instructions or safe use warnings or with the product, certainly to contact the manufacturer, go on their website. A lot of times there's additional information there. And certainly if you have questions about a specific product, how to use it, is it if the warranty still exists, especially for older products, certainly contacting the manufacturer is a good step.
Great. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment. Nearly 3 decades ago, Amazon set out to be Earth's most consumer-centric company, where people can discover and purchase the widest possible selection of safe and authentic goods. As part of that mission, they obsess over earning and maintaining trust by ensuring that they provide a trustworthy shopping experience. Amazon is dedicated to helping you make informed choices and use your purchases safely. Visit www.amazon.ca/product safety and usage and explore expert tips, articles, and videos from our partners to ensure a secure shopping experience. So before the break, we were talking about secondhand products, or reusing products. Maybe that's another way to think about it. Jen, you've come across a product for your child that you maybe felt was unsafe, or maybe even you've questioned if it's the right product for you. Do you check for things like age range recommendations when you purchase products? I know some of them won't have the original box and things like that, but what do you kind of check for when you look at for the safety of the product?
It's a really good question. I do occasionally check for the age range, although obviously the age ranges are there for a reason. Personally, I have always taken more of the approach of really knowing my kid, knowing her limitations. She was never one, and I'm going to say this and touch wood because she's only 4, but she was never really one to put stuff in her mouth that wasn't supposed to go in her mouth, during that, the high choking risk kind of time. Obviously I wasn't giving her the smaller items, but I always found, there is a little bit of discrepancy between maybe the posted age range and what I assess her ability and interest at. So it's kind of been a bit of a give and take, and it really is product dependent and dependent on her. We also make sure that she's supervised. So, if there is a new product, she has been a fan of Hot Wheels, cars. This kid is a car obsessed from the time she was really young. And so, making sure that while these don't have small parts, they have the ability to break into small parts. She's supervised while she's going to be playing with them. And that kind of was how we mitigated some of the maybe fudging the age range recommendations a little bit, is just making sure that the parental supervision piece is there while she's playing with it.
Yeah, that's good advice. And Matt, you talked about your son being, at the 99th percentile. That is a consideration, both from their physical size, but also obviously their cognitive ability. And you talked about, sharing products or passing along products. Maybe you can talk about the questions that you might have around, what do you do if you have something that you want to share with friends and family because the product is still, visibly usable?
Yeah, I always kind of want to see it first, because there were people who even offered, I think, to have my son, we got this motorized ATV thing, or, it's just he's too young for that. And they're trying to do a nice thing. And I'm just I don't trust him enough yet. We're on a busy road. We don't play in the front. He's too young. It's more backyard. So I think it's a lot of times if we're giving or receiving things, you got to take a look at it. And then like Jen said, you got to know your child, right? So age range is it's useful for some things, but for my son, I was more interested in what are the height and weight recommendations here? For the Jolly jumper, that was one that was, a very specific time they're ready for that, right? And we tried him a little bit too early in it once. And when I say a little too early, he just wasn't confident in his abilities to do it yet, and he got a little freaked out, and he was just crying. He didn't want to do it, and then we're it's okay, we'll try again. And he just needed a bit of time, but he was able to get into that thing a little bit earlier than the average kid, I'm sure. And then he loved it when he was actually doing it. But again, like Jen said, never letting him use things unsupervised. And so
Right.
Yeah, so we definitely kind of go, and then same thing with the choking, right? Like he was using things that were technically considered choking hazards a bit younger than say the average kid because he just never showed that he was putting things in his mouth. And then we'd be there with him for those things. Like especially at that like younger age, you're always with
Right.
them. But yeah, so if I'm and we're getting to a point now where like like other people are starting to have kids and we have a lot of stuff that we're ready to give away. So I think those
Right.
are some of the considerations that I would pass along. I'd pass along some of this, my own thoughts, and then my own assessment of the safety implications and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you
I
both
haven't put anything on Marketplace or anything yet.
you haven't gone down that road yet. I think
No,
you guys
not
make
yet,
a really
yeah.
you guys make a really good point about knowing your child. Like there's guidelines around the age and when they can be used, but also knowing your child is really important. Kavinda, just to wrap this up, if somebody is looking, that's great information what you shared about push notifications about recalls. What are the kinds of things that parents should report to Health Canada if they have an incident with a product?
So on Canada.ca, through the government, through Health Canada, there is a form where you can report incidents or safety concerns involving consumer products or cosmetics. And that form is sort of a way for Health Canada to be notified that there is a potential risk or a hazard existing with a product. And it's our way to then follow up with companies kind of to understand if there's a bit greater risk to Canadians. Again, I think I just want to echo a lot of what Jen and Matt have touched on is, being vigilant as parents, constantly making sure that you're kind of seeing what the different types of products are that they're interacting with. Agreed that there's a lot of recommendations, and I certainly always recommend going by the manufacturer's instructions when it comes to using a product. But again, you understand how your child interacts with these products, and that might change how you may want to approach using that and creating a safe environment for your children.
Right. So, when in doubt, if you have a experience with a product that you're concerned about, don't hesitate to contact Health Canada, report it through the form, because if you see trends, then you can see, if it's one incident versus a handful of incidents that, sort of triggers a review. So I think that's an important message for parents as well. Matt, Jen, Kavinda, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. We could probably talk for another half an hour on consumer products and all the different ins and outs, but I really appreciate the time you've taken to come and talk to me today on the podcast.
Thanks for having
Thanks,
us.
Pam.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. Popping the Bubble Wrap is a podcast of Parachute, Canada's national injury prevention charity. We release episodes monthly. Visit us at parachute.ca and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Parachute Canada. Don't keep us a secret, though. Help other parents find this podcast by sharing the link to Popping the Bubble Wrap and taking a second to submit a review. It really does help. Popping the Bubble Wrap is produced by Story Studio Network.